President Eisenhower signs the historic Paris Pacts, linking the United States with the West European Defense Alliance. Secretary of State Dulles and the President affixed their signatures to the historic agreements which admit a rearmed West Germany to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. America joins a united Europe in the common cause of freedom. Civil war flares in Saigon, capital of southern Vietnam. For the second time in 8 months, divided Indo-China sees the mark of gunfire and death. Rebels shell Capitol buildings and the palace, but lose police headquarters when loyalist soldiers drive them out. The rebel religious and political sects leave police headquarters a shambles. French tanks patrol the streets but take no sides. The rebel move against Premier Ngo Dinh Diem follows his refusal to subsidize the sect's private armies. An uneasy truce suspends the fighting for negotiations, while unrest hangs again over war-weary Indochina. While the human world keeps squabbling, some animals in Berlin are neatly solving the problem of coexistence. This is a circus act with a glimpse of the future, when everybody understands everybody, and anybody can walk all over anybody. But comes the day the cats start pushing monkeys around. A dog, a fox, and a goose out for a stroll. And in this utopia, the fox works, which certainly proves that animals will never be like people. Springtime means the call of the fresh outdoors, and these motorists seem to have heard it at the same time. For a windswept country outing, they're well-dressed in hats that are both pretty and practical. The peaked pillbox is by Arnold, and the white felt turban is by Gustavo. A straw beret is preferred by this driver. Her companion wears a Tyrolean bonnet, both by John Fredericks. All can be worn for both dress-up and outdoor occasions. Arriving for lunch at Cobb's Mill Inn, Weston, Connecticut, she wears a cloche by Walter Florell, veiled for breezes. A coolie hat by Emmy goes over the silk baby bonnet. Their friends have changed hats, too. The white felt helmet by Gustavo covers the hair. Like the others, pretty and wearable anywhere on the fresh, new days of spring. For Sir Winston Churchill, Knight of the Garter, these are the twilight hours of a lifetime of sacrifice and service to crown and country. Queen Elizabeth herself has come to number 10 Downing Street for a farewell dinner on the eve of the grand old warrior's retirement as Prime Minister. It is an evening of deep emotion and rich affection. As inevitable as Big Ben striking the hour, the toll of time forces the colorful Churchill to bow out of office, closing a career that found him marching out of the Victorian era into the second Elizabethan age. His longtime heir apparent, Sir Anthony Eden, becomes the 42nd Prime Minister of the ancient kingdom, at 57, the youngest in 30 years. The lengthening shadows of time have at last wrapped themselves around the man who for most of his 80 years walked with destiny. Shown here during World War I, Churchill resigned as First Lord of the Admiralty after the disastrous Dardanelles campaign, but he could still smile. He resumed the post at the outbreak of World War II, and then, as all Europe was collapsing in 1941, Churchill became Prime Minister of an embattled Britain. The next year, he met President Roosevelt to formulate the Atlantic Charter and forge a warm bond of personal friendship. At home, rallying his bomb-battered people, he vowed, "We shall fight on the beaches, the landing grounds, the fields, and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender." When the dread buzz bombs began raining new horrors on England, Churchill watched grimly and hurled new defiance at Hitler. Despite the bomb's awesome devastation, he led Britain through her darkest yet finest hour. At Casablanca in 1943, Churchill and Roosevelt celebrated Allied victory in Africa. At Tehran, in the first of the Big Three meetings, Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill planned the invasion of Hitler's fortress Europe. At the Yalta Conference, with victory secure, the Big Three made momentous post-war decisions. Crossing the Rhine near the war's end, Churchill little dreamed that his people would soon vote him out of office. With Field Marshal Montgomery, Citizen Churchill attended a reunion of veterans of El Alamein. Also present was an old comrade in arms, General Eisenhower. Before El Alamein, said Churchill, we never had a victory. After, never a defeat. Elections in 1951 found Churchill at 76, attempting a political comeback. Crowds cheered the results. Good old Winnie would rally his nation again. On his 80th birthday last November, friends presented him with a portrait of Lady Churchill. My most brilliant achievement, he once wrote, was my ability to persuade my wife to marry me. It was the most joyous event of my life. A great and gracious lady, for 47 years she has shared his trials and triumphs. And Lady Churchill was in Westminster Hall to hear Sir Winston's moving farewell.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am now nearing the end of my journey. I hope I still have some services to render.
Plans for a surprise mobilization of the National Guard are completed by General Matthew Ridgway, Army Chief of Staff, and General Nathan Twining, Air Force Chief of Staff, with Major General Erickson, National Guard Chief. The alert will summon Guardsmen across the nation. General Erickson speaks the word that puts into action Operation Minuteman. Nearly 400,000 air and ground Guardsmen answer the test, reporting to armories from Puerto Rico to Alaska. In the Pentagon, results roll in, state after state reporting alert and ready. In an hour and a half, more than 5,000 Guard units are mobilized, demonstrating speed and efficiency in Operation Minuteman. 9 9,500 CIO electrical workers strike at the huge plant of the SPERRY Gyroscope Company at Lake Success on Long Island, New York. Acres of parking lots stand empty while workers strike for a pay boost. But trouble flares when 3,000 unaffected employees try to get through the picket lines. Strikers block arriving automobiles, slowing them to a crawl. A policeman goes down as hand-to-hand fighting breaks out. Non-strikers run a gauntlet of abuse. Their cars are scratched, tires punctured, and windows shattered. Scores of clerical and supervisory workers are roughed up. $1 million a day of military production is lost. One man dies of a heart attack. Finally, industrial warfare closes the plant, once headquarters for the peaceful United Nations. The nationwide fundraising campaign for mental health is opened in Washington by Secretary of Welfare Obita Pathe. At the ceremony, a floral bell of hope made by mental patients symbolizes the crusade to raise $5 million for research, training, and education. Another bell cast from shackles once worn by the insane sounds the campaign start, a ringing alarm for attack on diseases of the mind. Britain Sir Winston Churchill starts his retirement with a vacation in Sicily. Returning from a sightseeing trip, Sir Winston is rounding out a leisurely day that goes like this. Up at 8, a look at the leisurely countryside. Porridge, bacon, and eggs for breakfast. Writing a book in the morning. Also reading and talking and painting a picture. A 5-course lunch. Several glasses of wine. Brandy. A nap, work, and cigars. Then a chat with American Ambassador Claire Booth Luce and her publisher husband about Churchill's new book. And so ends a quiet day for retired Winston Churchill.
In New York, at her Saks Fifth Avenue salon, designer Sophie unveils her bridal fashions for 55. The traditional wedding gown is of white silk satin with circular skirt and cathedral train. Her bridesmaid's dress is of Swiss organdy. With its draped crossover bodice and matching belt, the bridal gown is worn with a 3/4 heirloom lace veil. A delicate orange blossom headdress tops this waltz-length wedding gown with its bouffant skirt of 6 graduated tiers of pleated lace. All the bridesmaids' gowns are separates, a new departure in bridal styles. Here is a classic wedding gown of Italian peau de soie with closely fitting bodice and sheath skirt, another unusual fashion first. The Baroque neckline is ornamented with clusters of pearls and bugle beads. The bridesmaid's dress with simple oval neck is of silk crystallette. Also unusual is this bridesmaid's gown of varying stripes with sailor hat. The bridal gown of piqué is another Sophie design. Though styles change, customs do not, and the bridesmaid catches the bouquet by Forley of New York. With weddings in season, these are fashions to dress up every treasured bridal portrait.
Seattle, a giant Boeing C-97 Strato freighter powered by 4 5,700 horsepower turboprop engines is ready for its maiden flight. Although the new engines provide 63% more power, they're actually lighter in weight, enabling the 80-ton tanker transport to take off in shorter distances and to cruise at much higher speeds and greater altitude. A turboprop transduction gives a powerful lift to a sky giant. Thousands of miles away, mammoth C-119s and C-124s spill out paratroopers of the famed 82nd Airborne Division, hitting the silk in a spectacular mass airdrop at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. A canvas of chutes and clouds painted by men and nature. Plummeting toward Earth, the paratroopers hit with the force of a 20-foot fall, a bone-rattling jolt for even the toughest of the airborne infantrymen. Surviving the bumpy landings, there are still other hazards, wind-blown chutes to sweep the men along the ground. Though 2,000 take part, there are no serious injuries, as still more chutes speck the cluttered sky.